Theon Greyjoy was traumatically ripped from his home at 10 years old and sent to go live with strangers because his father Balon is a dumbass with the impulse control of a millennial scrolling DoorDash on payday. The vegetables are just dying in that fridge. They're just dying. Now, while Theon did a lot of stuff that, isn't super cool, the source of his trauma is pretty legitimate, in my opinion, and it all stems from Balon Greyjoy, his father's decision to launch the Greyjoy Rebellion in the aftermath of Robert Baratheon taking the throne. So 6 years after Robert Baratheon overthrew the Targaryens and took the Iron Throne, the Greyjoys, namely Balon, said, hey, what if we get to be kings again too? Because, there ain't no more Targaryens around. And so the Iron Islands seceded from the Seven Kingdoms, and Balon crowned himself king of the Iron Islands, and that totally went over super well. It obviously didn't, but that's the point of this video now, isn't it? Now, to understand the seeds of the Greyjoy Rebellion, we need to go back in time just a little bit to before even Robert's Rebellion, to the previous lord of the Iron Islands, who was Balon's father, Kellon. Some people say Quellon because it's spelled with a QU. I say Kellon to sue me. Now, while I thoroughly despise most Greyjoys and Iron Islanders, Kellon Greyjoy actually sounds like a pretty cool dude. He, let's just say, was the opposite of his son. Where his son is an impatient little shit, Kellon is, smart and thinks and tries to make decisions that benefit everyone, not just his ego. Weird. And I say that because Kellon Greyjoy made a concerted effort to basically tie the Greyjoys and the Iron Islands a little closer to the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. He allowed maesters to come to the Iron Islands to help, teach the children, school people, to heal, act as their doctors, and that is considered by most to have been a smart move. He also outlawed a lot of the reaving that the Iron Islanders love to do, saying that, this isn't conducive to making friends, let's not do it, as well as outlawing the law that allowed them to take thralls on the Iron Island, thralls basically being slaves. So if the Iron Islanders beat you, they could just take you and you would be like an indentured servant for a while, for always. I don't remember. Anyway, but Kellon said, hey, don't do that. Let's just not do slavery. Cool. As you're probably gathering, from the things that he's outlawing and stuff, he basically was trying to calm the Iron Islanders down and make them, just chiller people. He did not like war. He wanted them to, not be constantly in these struggles, getting people killed. He's like, hey, what if we just pursue peace? Wouldn't that be nice? Which made it very awkward when Robert's Rebellion eventually did break out once he was an older man, because, the entire kingdom was at war, but the Iron Islanders, for a while, stayed neutral. They stayed neutral because, he didn't want to get involved. He didn't want to get people killed. But eventually he finds out when Rhaegar dies, and at that point, his sons, namely Balon, Euron, and Victarion, are all being like, hey, we want to go to war. Let's go to war. We'll win all the glory and stuff. And he's like, guys, fine, okay, we'll go to war. Because again, the boys had been badgering him the whole time, being like, we need glory because we're Iron Islanders. And Kellon's like, can we just chill, please? But anyway, he finally agrees once Rhaegar is killed and is like, okay, we will join because the rebellion very much looks like it's going to be successful. Let's be on the winning side. So they join the rebellion on Robert's side and attempt to, help out. But because at this point, Kellon was old, not super healthy, and insisted on leading the fleet, he ended up dying pretty early and was succeeded by his son Balon. But by that point, Robert's Rebellion had basically been successful without their help, and so there was the whole change in leadership on the Iron Throne, where the Baratheons were now the royal house, and the Greyjoys were like, okay, cool. And Balon, very hurriedly went back to Pike and quickly, took the Sea Stone throne and said, okay, I am the new Lord of the Iron Islands. Cool. But naturally, Balon wasn't satisfied with that. So he said, okay, hey, the Baratheons, they're probably a little on shaky ground here. So this is going to be our moment. So Balon spends the next 5-6 years basically rebuilding up the Iron Fleet and making it this huge, massive fleet that's going to do damage because you know what? The ultimate goal is for us to be independent, and we're going to do that with lots of boats. And eventually the fleet is complete and he's like, okay, it's time to declare independence. He does so. They crown him King Balon of the Iron Islands. He's like, okay, now let's have some victories. Woo! And so the one victory that this dumb fuck actually accomplishes is he sends his new fleet and catches Lannisport, which is right here, unawares, and this is where Tywin, keeps his fleet, and they burn Tywin's fleet to the ground, like, yeah, look at us, we're so cool and awesome and independent, yay! Because that was so successful, he's like, hey, why don't we, now attack the Riverlands too, because fun. And so they attack Seaguard in the Riverlands right here, but that does not go as well. Balon has the strategic ability of lime jello, and so Seaguard quickly becomes a disaster in which they are defeated and repelled back into the sea, but not before Balon's oldest son, Roderick, is killed. This is a good spot to point out that Balon at this point has 3 sons, Roderick, Meryn, and Theon, Theon being the youngest, and Roderick and Meryn being like adults at the time. But yeah, Roderick is killed, and they're like, ooh, that's not great. So Balon's like, hey, it's okay. Victarion and Aeron and Euron, you go take all the boats and go back and attack the Lannisters again. That worked so great the first time. Because Balon at this point was convinced that the fact that the Iron Islands were going to kind of protect them from the rest of Westeros. So it was better to stay on the offensive. And then he specifically even said, the sea shall be my moat, and woe to any man who dares to cross it. Naturally, though, Robert Baratheon heard that and said, bet. So while Balon's brothers, Euron, Victarion, and Aeron were sent to attack the Lannisters, I actually don't remember if it was the Lannisters, but to attack someone, Robert had sent Stannis with basically the royal fleet, which then combined with the Red Wine fleet. The Red Wines have a big fleet, just FYI, probably because they're close to the Iron Islands and they always have to deal with them. But he sent that combined force and said go fuck with them. And fuck with them he did. Stannis lured Victarion and basically most of the Iron Fleet into a trap, in between Fair Isle here. So you see Fair Isle, and so there's this little strait. He basically lured them into that area where, a little hard to maneuver. It's just a strait, and then just decimated them when they got there. Aeron, Balon's brother, Theon's uncle, got captured at that point. Victarion's ships were destroyed. It was a whole to-do. And then that gave Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark the ability to basically team up and get the band back together and then attack Pike directly. Pike is the seat of the Iron Islands, where their castle is, and the boys were back in town, and they ripped that shit apart. They broke down the walls, killed Balon's second son, Meryn, on the way in, and then a bunch of people fought and ended up getting their knighthoods because they did good fighting, y'all. In particular, Jorah Mormont became a knight for fighting bravely in this battle. So about a year, possibly less than a year, after declaring himself the new king of the Iron Islands, Balon was brought before Robert Baratheon in chains after his castle got just fucked up. And when he was brought before Robert in chains, he said the following: "You may take my head, but you cannot name me traitor. No Greyjoy ever swore an oath to a Baratheon." To which Robert replied, "Swear one now or lose that stubborn head of yours." I'm not a huge Robert fan, but that shit is funny. So Balon, being a dumb piece of shit, bent the knee, swore his oath to Robert Baratheon, and Robert Baratheon was like, cool, glad we could take care of that. For some insurance, we are going to send your last surviving son and heir, Theon Greyjoy, to go live with Ned Stark to make sure that you do not pull this shit again. So sorry, Theon, but at least you can legitimately say that this is all your dad's fault. Okay, goodbye.